He aligns with neither political faction, being neither conservative nor liberal, as independent Maine Senator Angus King has dedicated his whole congressional tenure to executing a truly uncommon practice within the Capitol, examining the files in their entirety, avoiding the executive synopses and the prepared arguments to scrutinize the authentic records, the unprocessed statistics, and the foundational mathematics, and whenever those figures fail to align, he speaks up irrespective of the authors, irrespective of the political faction gaining from the adjustment, and irrespective of the individual seated opposite him at the testimony desk. He placed a slate-colored binder upon his table, stared at Pete Hegseth on the opposite side of the room, and delivered 6 words that caused the entire audience to tilt closer in unison. I believe that is exceptionally low. He was not citing a legislative projection, nor was he providing a personal viewpoint. He had calculated the mathematics in their entirety, and those calculations failed to align with anything Hegseth had reported to the legislature regarding the actual price of the Iranian conflict. If you are discovering this channel, please subscribe immediately because the information King is preparing to showcase represents the most thorough, unaligned recreation of the Iranian conflict expenses ever submitted into the legislative archives, completely separate from liberal projections or conservative rebuttals, brought forth by an unaffiliated lawmaker lacking any partisan interest in the result who dedicated 8 weeks to examining every accessible monetary record to produce a figure so massively greater than the amount Hegseth declared that the chamber will become absolutely silent the moment he speaks it aloud. Inside the Senate Armed Services Committee chamber SR 22 on Thursday morning at 10:44 a.m. Eastern Time, the proceeding was officially scheduled as a routine review covering the Defense Department's Iranian conflict spending disclosures alongside the fiscal year 2027 additional funding rationales. It was never actually routine. King entered holding a slate binder along with a canary-colored legal notepad filled with manually written computations, placed both items upon his table, unsealed the notepad, reviewed his mathematics a final time, shut it, pushed it away, and completely ignored the binder throughout the initial 58 minutes. Hegseth appeared relaxed since combat expense inquiries represented common ground, having committed his figures to memory at $29 billion in direct tactical expenses, a statistic he had repeated across 11 proceedings, faced pushback on previously, and managed successfully when Representative Khanna interrogated him about it several months prior, leading Hegseth to believe he understood exactly how this dialogue would unfold. He had not observed King's legal notepad. The initial 58 minutes involved typical additional funding schedules and tactical expense tracking structures regarding maintenance forecasts, while Hegseth delivered smooth responses, quoting the financial overseer's document, pointing to the Joint Chiefs spending verification, appearing at ease and reviewing his materials on 2 occasions. Next, King grabbed the microphone, stating, "Mr. Secretary," using a tone that was controlled and highly straightforward, mimicking the voice of a person preparing to state something exact without requiring an introduction. "I wish to discuss the $29 billion amount you have been presenting to this panel representing the comprehensive price of the Iranian conflict. I have dedicated 8 weeks to combing through every accessible monetary file connected to this engagement, including military financial overseer documents, Treasury spending logs, Congressional Budget Office evaluations, Federal Reserve economic consequence reviews, and additional funding petitions, reviewing everything." He unsealed the slate binder and declared, "My calculation does not equal $29 billion. He hesitated before adding, "My calculation equals $847 billion. The chamber failed to respond for 2 entire seconds, and then it exploded absolutely, not slowly, not escalating, but immediately, with every reporter inside the space typing concurrently, a conservative from Georgia loudly breathing out, a liberal from Illinois muttering a phrase beneath her breath, and the leader grabbing his mallet prior to Hegseth even parting his lips. King paused for silence. He did not appear shocked by the outburst since he had been holding on to this figure for 8 weeks, allowing the audience a moment to process it before repeating $847 billion once more in a level, objective manner, matching the tone someone uses to recite a figure after verifying it so many times that personal shock has entirely vanished. Right now, I must pause for a moment, so, if you agree, The citizens of this nation deserve the genuine price tag of this conflict. Boost this clip immediately as the boost icon sits directly beside the like button, allowing you to boost 3 times daily without any cost. And we possess 7 days to push this among the top 100 most boosted clips across YouTube, meaning every boost matters, so execute it immediately and then continue viewing because King is preparing to detail precisely where every single dollar of that $847 billion originates, with each classification being more severe than the previous one. Hegseth tilted forward instantly, stating, "Senator, that amount lacks credibility, as the Military Financial Overseer's document transparently confirms direct tactical expenses at $29 billion, and any amount deviating from that system to such a massive degree demands exceptional reasoning that I refuse to believe is actually present." King unsealed his legal notepad and replied, "I possess the reasoning, so allow me to guide you through the details." Initial record, he said while positioning it beneath the visual projector, covers direct tactical expenses as outlined by the Military Financial Overseer at $29 billion, and I agree with that figure, before glancing upward to add, which represents the singular figure within your outward-facing disclosures that I agree with, because all other factors are completely absent. He extracted the second record, stating, "This represents the Treasury Department's spending evaluation regarding Iranian conflict-associated disbursements spanning all national departments, extending beyond merely the military, encompassing State Department crisis actions, USAID relief efforts, Energy Department atomic protection expansion expenses, and Homeland Security danger mitigation disbursements." And as he unsealed it, he noted, "The comprehensive interdepartmental Iranian conflict disbursements omitted from the Military Financial Overseer's document equal $94 billion, dropping it down while adding, "Your $29 billion measures the military, but it fails to measure the remainder of the national administration. The cumulative sum thus far reaches $123 billion. Hegseth's legal counsel tilted closer while King continued speaking. "Third record is the Congressional Budget Office's extended expense evaluation," he said while unsealing it, "which encompasses 3 classifications your financial overseer's document completely omits, specifically medical care expenses for Iranian conflict wounded forecasted across 4 decades, hardware substitution expenses regarding resources utilized or ruined, alongside the interest attached to the urgent additional loans utilized to finance the engagement." And after looking upward at the CBO's calculation for these 3 classifications, he placed it down, saying, "Mr. Secretary, we currently sit at 15 times your declared amount, and I have not even reached the financial market impacts yet." He extracted the 4th record, the Federal Reserve's financial consequence evaluation, unsealing it to note, "The sealing of the Hormuz passageway has impacted international petroleum values, maritime expenses, and commerce streams for 7 months. So the central bank's evaluation concerning the national financial consequence incorporates elevated power expenses for domestic families and companies, logistical network interruptions, and diminished economic expansion," dropping it down to reveal a Federal Reserve national financial consequence evaluation totaling $287 billion. As the cumulative sum grew, a conservative representative from Texas ceased writing down observations, simply observing the scene. "Fifth record covers extended territorial pacification expenses," he stated while positioning it beneath the projector, representing a combined State Department and military evaluation regarding expected disbursements necessary to secure the post-war landscape within the territory across the subsequent 10 years, covering ambassadorial operations, defense support, and rebuilding donations. And upon opening it to find the forecasted 10-year territorial pacification expenses linked to the Iranian conflict, he shut his legal notepad, declaring, $847 billion represents the genuine price of this engagement, instead of $29 billion. $29 billion represents what it requires to pilot the aircraft and launch the projectiles. $847 billion represents what it charged the United States of America, encompassing every department, every family, every logistical network, and every upcoming obligation we currently possess within that territory due to what occurred during February. He stared at Hegseth intently, stating, "Mr. Secretary, I am neither a liberal nor a conservative, and I lack any partisan motivation regarding your amount being incorrect. Rather, my motivation lies in the amount being accurate, since the legislature remains unable to execute sound choices regarding upcoming defense budgets, upcoming ambassadorial pledges, or upcoming combat campaigns whenever the statistics provided to us remain incorrect by a multiplier of 29. He hesitated before adding, $29 billion compared to $847 billion does not represent a procedural dispute, nor does it represent an alternative evaluative structure. Instead, it represents an amount communicating the narrative you desire to communicate compared to an amount communicating the complete narrative. Hegseth tilted forward, arguing, Senator, the amounts you are showcasing merge classifications that have never been incorporated within combat expense disclosures beneath any leadership, whether liberal or conservative, as the Federal Reserve's financial consequence evaluation independently incorporates presumptions regarding hypothetical fiscal situations that remain intrinsically theoretical, and incorporating them into a combat expense amount would essentially misrepresent the reality. King raised his palm upwards, interrupting, I recognize those classifications have never been incorporated previously, which remains my exact argument. He stared toward Hegseth, stating, Every leadership regime minimizes combat expenses by omitting extended and secondary consequences, and every leadership regime provides the legislature the direct tactical amount while labeling it the price of the conflict. And whenever we execute that practice, the citizens of this nation finalize choices regarding combat campaigns, depending upon a figure that completely omits what they will genuinely fund throughout their existences through their power invoices, through their medical care expenses regarding wounded soldiers, and through their public levies covering the subsequent 4 decades of debt charges. He glanced toward the panel, declaring, I am not speaking $847 billion allowed to humiliate this current leadership. I am speaking $847 billion allowed because that reflects what the records state, and should we continue disclosing $29 billion while the genuine amount remains $847 billion, we shall execute identical choices once more, causing the subsequent conflict to demand an additional $847 billion that we similarly disclose as a mere $29 billion. He pivoted toward the leader, stating, Mr. Chairman, I propose to submit all 5 records into the permanent legislative archives, specifically the Military Financial Overseers document, the Treasury's interdepartmental evaluation, the CBO's extended expense review, the Federal Reserve's financial consequence document, and the combined state-territorial pacification forecast. I additionally propose to petition that the Government Accountability Office execute an unaligned, thorough expense evaluation regarding the Iranian conflict utilizing all pertinent expense classifications, delivering their findings to this panel inside of 120 days. Both proposals received immediate backing and both ultimately succeeded. King collected his legal notepad alongside his binder. He stared toward Hegseth one last time, expressing, Mr. Secretary, I possess zero desire to make you appear foolish. I possess a desire for precise statistics, since precise statistics represent the method by which free societies execute choices, whereas flawed statistics represent the method by which free societies commit identical errors constantly while questioning why nothing ever transforms. He shut the slate binder, stating, $847 billion represents the true figure, not $29 billion, not $71 billion, but rather $847 billion whenever you measure everything, whenever you measure every department, every family, every wounded soldier requiring treatment across the subsequent 4 decades, every cent of debt charges, and every expense toward pacifying the territory our actions disrupted, representing the complete price of what occurred during February, and presently it resides within the permanent legislative archives. He walked away, so please subscribe to this broadcast immediately, because tomorrow we publish the complete Federal Reserve Financial Consequence Evaluation, including every classification, every family expense projection, every logistical network interruption recorded, every economic expansion percentage vanished, and the exact amount the central bank computed which the leadership entirely ignored, representing $287 billion in national financial destruction that was entirely excluded from the combat expense amount disclosed to the legislature. The records remain genuine, the CBO evaluation remains unaligned, the Federal Reserve Review remains accessible to citizens, and Angus King, an unaffiliated lawmaker lacking any partisan interest in the result, recently submitted $847 billion into the permanent legislative archives, representing the genuine price of a conflict the leadership originally disclosed as merely $29 billion. Strike that like icon, distribute this widely, emphasizing the $29 billion disclosed versus the $847 billion reality, representing a 29-fold multiplier, all exposed by an unaffiliated lawmaker who examined every single record and produced the figure nobody else desired to speak aloud.